That was for Jeff.
You know, I've got some thoughts. You know what I forget when we do these shows, the post-game shows? It's just you and me, so all we have to do is this.
One thing. Just win, baby.
Damn it. I've got us all messed up.
That's why you forget.
Here we go.
At the 50, time running down. Oakland football, and I think Oakland victory. The Oakland Raiders have scored on the most
I got to go in the chat.
Oh, yeah, go to the chat.
impossible dream of a play.
YouTube.
I love this team. I think this team can win. I think this team can win.
You are listening live to Raiders Fan Radio. Take it away, guys.
Why, thank you, Brett Musburger. What is up, Raider Nation? Your buddy Murph back once again for what we trust will be a fantastic episode of Raiders Fan Radio. Episode number 304 of Raiders Fan Radio, coming to you live from Murph's Fan Cave, where Uncle Mosh and I are here to talk about the Raiders' last performance against the San Diego Superchargers. Lord have mercy, that was a rough one, but let's see, enough of me and more of him is always a good thing. So let me go ahead and without further ado, toss it over to the one and only, the legendary, my co-host for the night for this rapid reaction show, Uncle Mosh. Hi, Mosh.
Cheers.
Salud.
Oh, my gosh. Murph,
What just happened?
what are we going to do? What are we going to do?
That was rough.
Okay. Here's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
We're watching the game, and I said, Murph, our quarterback looks 7.
With a mustache.
It looked like it had help. It looked like there might have been a little mascara, you know. But you know what? I get accused of it sometimes, you know, being a little Pollyanna and being a little bit of a Raider bootlicker and all that stuff. But you know what? I saw some good things out there. I said to myself,
just you.
I am the only one. Maybe
only
that
one.
saw that. I saw something. I saw some things that I liked. I wouldn't necessarily say they were good things.
Okay.
Because some
fair.
of them ended in penalties.
Yeah, right.
But you know, anytime we got a team that when you're going out of bounds and you've already crossed the white line and you take a shot and you got Max Crosby at your back and you start a fight on their sidelines, I'm kind of okay with that.
You like that shit. It
just reminds me of the old school, you know? It reminds me of getting people fired up. I mean, this is at one point in time during this game when we actually thought we had a chance to maybe do something to pull it out, when we did something we hadn't done all year, score in the third quarter.
Right.
And then we go into the fourth quarter and things are starting to turn. And I looked at you and I said, you know, this is the most exciting game pretty much all year. And it's always a good game. This is as exciting of a game as we've seen since the San Diego Raiders game that you and I went to that put us into the playoffs 2 years ago. You know, so there were some things. There was some hitting. There was excitement. There was some fired up on the field that I think if the coaches and the powers that be have the same vision that I did, that they can take that and they can use that and they can work that into a winning formula. Maybe not 10 games winning, but not shit in the bed the rest of the year.
Fair enough.
You know, so I guess that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see a little bit of that ferocity. I'd like to see when Max Crosby, when we got that interception and Max Crosby took a shit at Hebert, you know, and he got Hebert got his finger stuck in Max's face gear, and I'm like, even Max Crosby's face can hurt you. No.
Would have been better if that was illegal hands to the face.
Yeah. No kidding.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So
don't ask me about the tuck roll.
No, hell no, I ain't talking about that. But that was pretty funny though when that came up. But let me ask you this. Okay. So for those of you that don't know, we have a lot of new listeners to this show. Uncle Mosh was a lifelong coach of various different sports, and a leader of a lot of different organizations. Sure. Okay. You don't like to call for coaches' jobs. You never have in the whole time you've done this show. That said, okay, in establishing that, there's a lot of us fans, including me now, that are starting to look at the lack of leadership and the lack of success that is now showing on the field, on the sideline, the body language, despite those moments of ferocity that we saw tonight on defense. The collective body language of the Las Vegas Raiders is not great. The collective language from the front office is not great. The collective messaging from them even. And I haven't listened to the press conferences yet. We haven't gotten there yet. But when we listen to that, historically has not been very inspiring. So as someone who was a successful leader of organizations and sports teams and play, at what point do you look at the leaders and say, okay, it's time for them to be accountable for these lacks of successes and negative things that happen? And is it appropriate to start saying like, okay, it's time to move on because what we're doing is not working, and that's okay. Look, some people are Norvell Turner was one of the greatest offensive coordinators in the history of the NFL. He was a terrible head coach, and that's okay. But I don't think that this is maybe what's cut out for Josh McDaniels. So what point, how far would it have to take for you, someone that's 100% on the side of coaches for the most part, how far does it have to go for you to say like, okay, enough's enough, let's try something new and different?
I guarantee you this, it's not going to be after the fourth game of a 17-game season. That's not going to happen. You have to see how coaches and players respond in the midst of adversity. A few years ago, when we had that terrible season with all the adversity off the field that we went through, and I'm not going to even go into names and all that. We all know what we're talking about. We responded well. Okay, I think there are too many pundits out there that say, let's overthink things. Let's overanalyze things. I'm not dodging your question of when do you draw that line, but I think everything has a life of its own. So McDaniels, okay. So is he the right guy for the job? Did we make a mistake by letting Bisaccia go? On and on and on. I don't know yet, but I know I'm not going to make the decision after the fourth game of the season. Yes, we're 3-1. Okay, we are the same record as
1-3.
I'm sorry, 1-3. We're the same backwards. We're the same record as the Donkeys, but we got them on the head-to-head. So I don't know. I can't tell you that right now. Yes, that's in the back of my mind. Yes, that's something, because that's the nature of the beast. You don't perform or you don't get your people to perform, then you're replaced. That's why they tell people, you might want to lease that house.
Yeah. It's a meritocracy at the end of the day.
You do, and so many, gosh, nobody in football ever played for, maybe one or two, but for the most part, played for Al Davis, and he usually ended up firing them, but they all came back in reverence, and they're all lifelong Raiders. Even the Snake got traded.
Casper, Tatum,
all
Villapiano,
they all got traded, but they're all one thing. They're Raiders.
Yep.
That's the nature of the beast. And there are people. Brett Favre was a Packer. Brett Favre will go into, people don't think of these folks as so that's part of what the game that we love. Okay. We got to have somebody to blame. We can't blame our ex-wife anymore. She's gone. Of course, she's gone and she's stinking up somebody else's bed in New Orleans, but
she's not throwing for 200 yards in another city.
She would have never completed those passes to Jacobs. it's so I didn't answer your question. I did answer it by saying that's not on the table for me.
For not yet.
That's not on the table for right now. When does that happen? I don't know. It's going to take a couple more games to see how do we respond. We got a test coming up next week.
Green Bay's no joke, man.
We lost 2 games we should have won.
100%.
Lost 2 games we should have won.
Yes.
And now how are we gonna respond? But we play the game. We play the game every Sunday to see who's the best team or who gets the best breaks. I like the kid. I like the kid.
You like O'Connell?
I like him, man.
Yeah.
I like the kid. And
it'll be interesting to see how he responds to adversity. So, I tell
he threw to Renfro twice. I love the
huge,
kid.
Right?
And what does it take? What does it take? Does it take bringing this new guy in to use this high-priced offense that we have? First of all, I don't care what anybody says. If you let Khalil Mack sack you 6 times, then it's not. It can't, all that fault can't be on the kid. Who's coaching up our offensive line? Why was little Dave not over there double teaming Khalil all night long? Why was one of the other tight ends that we weren't utilizing? Why weren't they?
Well, because once they committed them over to that side of the line to try to negate Mac, then all of a sudden we neutralized them to a certain extent. So
exactly,
I'm with you on that. But here's what I would ask you though is that. But
are those coaching decisions?
Why aren't we not arriving in that sooner? That's the part that I think gets so challenging for us. It gets so frustrating for us as Raider fans. It's like we're seeing this stuff, and it's like if we can witness it and we can see it unfolding, why is the speed to adjustment so freaking slow for Josh McDaniels? I will forever be confounded by this idea that, like, when you look at the way that those, and I know y'all hate it when we talk about the Patriots, but listen, we got to consider the reference point. When you look at the way that they adjusted, not only game to game, but week in and week out in game, it was phenomenal. Like 1 week they would beat you with James White. 1 week they would beat you with Danny Amendola. 1 week they would beat you with Randy Moss. It was always something different, whether it was wide receivers, tight ends, shallow crossers with slot receivers like Amendola or Wes Welker or Julian Edelman, or games when they ran the football. But I'm starting to believe, like, we all wondered when Tom left New England. Okay, was it Tom or was it Bill? Tom went on and won a Super Bowl. Bill's 1-3. Josh McDaniels hadn't done shit. I don't know what his record now is with the Raiders. Somebody in the chat room does. He hadn't done shit. And other than Vrabel, who wasn't ever technically on a Patriots coaching staff, but is basically a disciple of the Patriots, and is a phenomenal head coach, as we know. Vrabel's great. But outside of him, nobody else that's ever been affiliated from a coaching perspective with the success of Tom Brady has done well in the NFL. And there was a lot of me that said going into this, let's let it prove out. Let's let it happen. Let's look at it. All those critics are right. And until the Raiders give us a different narrative, everybody that's ever been critical of them and the choices they made has been right. And so I'm gonna always fall back on that. Why is it take so long? Why is it that we see other teams and other coaches around the league make these adjustments, make these changes? Why is it that we see I'm gonna even multi-layer this question. We see other owners have different levels of expectation than we do Mark Davis. Well, I can appreciate I love Mark Davis. This is not an indictment of Mark Davis, but I'm asking a question I think fairly. When you've got an owner that's had a lack of success, why is he so slow to pull the trigger? Now, I know that his old man pulled the trigger quickly on a lot of other coaches, and the rapid turnover of coaching staffs had a negative impact on the Raiders over the long term. I fully understand that as well. But what I don't understand is that while you look around the league, why other people don't have the same level of patience, and we're talking about patience in lack of success. It's not even like a Mike Tomlin where, the Steelers have some down years and the Rooney stick with them, and they kind of have some ups and downs, but then ultimately they come back and whatever. He's had demonstrated success. Josh McDaniels have nothing. He's nothing. As a head coach, he's got jack shit
but
to prove. So, I mean,
but you're talking about how. But if you go back and look, Mark has pulled the plug. Let's look at our ex-wife and how many offensive coordinators she had when. I mean, we talked about that. In his first 6 years, he had
that's true.
48 offensive coordinators. So those turnovers in coaching have happened. We have had a lot of different head coaches. I say, who am I to second guess Mark? But if I were to say the biggest mistake he made was getting rid of Bisaccia, I think personally, I think that the man, he commanded the locker room. He commanded the respect of the players. Those guys would have run through brick walls for him. He had assembled a pretty good staff. Did we have the best record? No, but we had the year of adversity that nobody else had gone through in years. And that may have been a mistake. And
you know what? And not because, look, we can't change the past and we can't change what's already done. And we can sit here and lament what happened with Bisaccia, but I do think it's a critical point, and I do want to lean into it because I think it demonstrates what we're talking about here. And I just got off the air with Scott Gulbranson over at Silver and Black today, and I brought up the example of not only Robert Saleh in San Francisco,
sure.
but also Dan Campbell in Detroit, and the difference in. You've got those fiery, passionate leaders of men. And while emotion is fleeting and it's not all just about, just being a crazy rah-rah guy, and we know that doesn't work entirely in the NFL either, but when they were in the midst of losing, and they being the Lions, you saw their players come out still fired up, still committed to the program, still endorsing the coach, with faith saying we're going to get better. We know this thing is going to turn around. We've just got to stay with it. And it wasn't this trust the process, bullshitty kind of philosophical thing. It was demonstrative. You could see it, you could feel it, and you could hear it in the players. And ultimately what's happened, Dan Campbell went from this terrible win-loss record to this phenomenal win-loss record over the past now 2 seasons. And so those things, I don't see the same thing going on with the Raiders. But hold on, and we'll throw back to you. Again, not to camp out on the past, but that, to me, Rich Bisaccia was way more Dan Campbell and Bob Saleh than he was Josh McDaniels.
Right.
And so I'm with you that I think at a minimum, he and Mike Mayock earned a second look. And they never got it.
I agree.
I think they at least should have got a second look.
I agree.
So I'm with you. Again, I will praise Mark Davis for many, many things. But I think just like anything, people, can be criticized if you're a public figure especially. And that would be one I would call into question. Like, I think looking back, we may have wanted that one back.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that. I think there's a lot of things that we want back. But what I saw on the field today was, like I said, I saw some excuse me. I saw some fire in the way that they played. Was it sloppy? Was it loosey goosey? Sure. The first half, it was a tale of two halves. Basically, is what it was. It was the first half was oh my God. We were thinking, we were already talking about food, which is pretty normal. But it usually a little bit of food when we're talking about football. But it was But then I started seeing that, man. I started seeing some fire in those guys. I started seeing some hard hits, and I started seeing some stuff that was like, okay, this is not a team that's stepping over the line. This is a team that's taking you right up to it, and that's what they got to. You got to quit thinking about that last shot you took, and you got to start looking at the next one. To quote Larry Bird, And I think that's what we got to do. I think that's what if Josh is a coach that's worth his weight, that's what he's going to do. He's going to look at this and he's going to say he's going to watch film. He's going to get 3 hours of sleep the next 4 days, and he's going to say, this is our game plan. This is what we got to do going into the next one. And if we see some of that in the next few games, then they're working on that. Then they're building on that.
Right.
And then, and if we don't, if we see a lackluster performance, if we see, if the offensive line, sorry about that, if the offensive line doesn't come in and and stop all the floodgates from opening over the next few weeks, then we're going to need more quarterbacks to start with.
Can you imagine if Bosa would have been in this game?
Oh, my God.
Oh
my God. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
How much does that – so, again, this is a lighter journey into the dark side around here, but it's dark as hell, man, for the way that this team is playing. But, like, let me ask you that, Mosh. Like, you know, we see Khalil Mack come in and have a dominant game, and while – you know, we can talk about, you know, the reasoning that the Raiders moved on from him. And I still, to this day, I still think they made the right choice in moving on from Mack in terms of the financial commitment that it would have required to keep him, in terms of the draft capital that we got back. But ultimately, when you look at what we didn't do with all that draft capital, I mean, it turned into basically Josh Jacobs, and that's about it.
Yeah.
We really didn't acquire much in the whole scheme of things. Does it have an extra, like I think back to the days, and you and I are both old enough to remember, of course, I was a kid, but still, I remember when we traded away Kenny Stabler and Dave Casper and Jack Tatum to the Oilers, and the Raiders would play the Oilers, like there was a little bit of extra mustard on that, because even though Kenny was your guy, who was, you know, he was still, you know, on the other team. So when he did have any success against the Raiders, it had that little bit of extra on it. Now, ultimately, the Raiders won out, and the Raiders were the ones winning championships, not the Oilers. But in this case, when you see a Khalil Mack come back and have like a career day against the Raiders, does that bother you as a fan any extra, or is it just sucks for the Raiders? So
it sucks for the Raiders. I'll tell you why it doesn't bother me. Where has Khalil Mack's career been prior to today? There's a reason Khalil got traded from the Bears. The Bears sold the franchise to get this guy, and then they ended up getting rid of him. Did he produce? No, I remember we talked about the first or second year he was with them, and he was hurt. And he, you know, and he was on. And then we're like, okay, well, we got the right end of the stick on that one,
right.
You know, so okay, he has his career day ever against us. Okay, got to move on.
Okay,
got to move on. You know, I can't.
It makes me sad. I think, if anything, and not in like a boo-hooey kind of shitty way, but I mean in like man, that was our guy. Like, that was our guy. Like, I would have loved to have seen Khalil Mack stay in silver and black for the entirety of his career, and to have a day like this against the Chargers. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I think that's the part of it that kind of gets me. You know,
yeah, but you know what?
Like,
we all wanted the ex-wife to be the next Kenny Stabler too. We all wanted Jonathan Abram to be the guy. We wanted Waller, Adams, Renfro to be our guys that for Derek to throw to. None of that happened. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of it. You play the hand you're dealt. And it seems like others are dealing off the bottom of the deck. Why does that massive fat Andy Reid have you know, why does fat of the week?
You look like melted ice cream.
I can actually hear you getting fatter.
Says he's fat.
Who's fat?
Too fat. Big fat fatty.
Fatty, fatination, fatarama, Franklin Delano Fatavelt. Why does he get all the success that he gets in with the mustard and ketchup people? Are they going to have that same conversation? Was it him or was it Kermit? You know,
well,
what are they when he retires? Is when Kermit and Kelsey are done. When
Kelsey can't be done soon enough, and I'm about sick of damn Taylor Swift.
What's going to happen is this: Mark Davis has hired Taylor Swift to seduce Kelsey. So right before they go into the playoffs, she's going to break his damn heart.
Oh, that would be amazing.
There will be so many.
Love it, Mosh.
Yeah. You heard it here first. She's gonna break his heart. He's gonna fart and fall out there. He's gonna be dropping balls. He's gonna be running in the wrong direction. He doesn't know what's going on, and it's
says he's fat.
good.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. So but really, in all reality, was it John Madden or was it the snake? Was it?
I feel like that was a culmination.
Was it? It wasn't an ensemble. Was it a collective group? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. It was.
Yeah.
It was
that
a
was a team.
That was a team. That was
Yeah.
a team, and that's what we haven't had. We haven't had
So long.
in so long. We've had a lot of guys that have been really good. We've had a lot. We really have
some great players.
We've had some great players. We've had some great coaches. But we just haven't been able to get it all to gel, and God, it's just frustrating as hell.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a fun game to watch. I know it was sad. I know it sucked. But man, I'll give you an example.
Okay, give me an example.
There's 10 minutes left in the game. He punts. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Wait a minute. Let me talk. Don't talk, hot dog. Shit. Call Mikey. You got A-Bear in the tent. Nobody knows what's wrong with him, okay? But he's been in the tent for a long time. So coach says, okay, we're going to punt the ball back to him. And nay that interception, if we'd have scored, everybody would have said what a genius he was, right? Because we punt, they shit the bed, go 3 and out, we get the ball back. On the 40, we score, okay? All of a sudden, things are a whole nother ball of wax, and you're going, man, we should gone for it. Well, you can't go for it on 4th and 30. We should have kicked the field goal when you got the one of the best field goal kickers in the league. But that's why you play it. That's why you play it. It sucks. You're not going to agree with everything that the coach does. I'm not, I don't know. I thought it was pretty good because other than that one throw he made at the very end, he was struggling, and they were swinging at that hurt hand.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. All right, so let me ask you. So, chat room, it's hard for us to keep up with it during the show, but I always love to go back and read your comments. So, definitely jump in and let us hear your thoughts. I mean, I'm assuming there's a lot of gloom and doom going on in the chat room. I can't imagine that there's a ton to be excited about. So, I'll share this with you, Raider Nation, and then I want to throw back to Uncle Mosh before we get out of here for the night. But I'll say this, is that, so what do you do kind of going forward? I just talked to Scott on Silver and Black today, and I told him, I said, I feel like these past few weeks have been like, like the stages of grief that you go through when you lose a loved one. It's like, first, like, you don't want to believe it, right? And I don't even know what they all are, but it's like, you don't want to, you're dismissive of it. And then there's an anger, right? I felt like last week, like I was pissed off, man. I was so mad that we lost to the freaking Steelers. This week, I feel like I'm sad. I think that just makes me sad. It was like, this was our first home game. There was a lot of things set up to our favor, being with all the injuries, not only prior to the game, but then injuries in the game, as you mentioned, with A-Bear getting hurt. And so there's a lot of things leading up with the rookie starting. It was like, okay, like there could have been a lot of things leading up to us being successful in this game, and we weren't. And we just crapped the bed. And it wasn't even just the idea that we lost. And to me, like, I'm such a junkie for body language. And like when you read into the body language and when you look at what the sideline looked like and the demeanor, despite the spirited play at times on defense, there was a lot of shoulders forward. There was a lot of down. There was a lot of, Max Crosby sitting on the bench looking a little dejected, although it was brief and he brought himself right back out of it, but he's a self-motivator and not everybody is. All that said, like, so what do you do going for, like, as a fan, like, frankly, like, for us to have an expectation that this team is going to win a whole crap ton of games, that to me is like long out the window. So I start to look at, like, okay, what do we have to invest in for the success of the Raiders in the future? And it's really a shame that here we are in week 4 and we're talking about this stuff. But I think ultimately that, and I hope I'm dead wrong, and I hope that there's a miraculous turnaround and all that stuff. But listen, man, if you're not going to use Hunter Renfrow, trade him. I don't understand why they drafted Michael Mayer. I don't understand a lot of the things that this regime has chosen to do from a personnel perspective, let alone the on-field, which we talked about there. So what I'll do from this point on is I will look for almost like a glorified version of the preseason. I'll look for Nestor Jade Silvera. I'll look for Jacorian Bennett. I'll look for Christopher Smith. I'll look for these guys to have flashes of big talent and maybe something to look forward to for the rest of the season. But at this point, I'm just an NFL I'm never going to stop being a Raider fan. This stuff doesn't come off. But my point being, though, is that I'm not going to expect the Raiders to flip this thing and go into a play. And I'm not even being a sad sack. I'm just being kind of real about it. I love the NFL. I love the sport of football. I'm going to watch the college games closely. I've already been keeping an eye on Caleb Williams. I'm going to keep an eye on Drake May. I'm going to be looking at these guys at the college level and what maybe they could bring to the NFL, and would we be in play for one of those quarterbacks? I'm going to start looking at kind of the broader scope of things and where this might go, regardless of whether we go on from our head coach or we retain him or anything else. And so I kind of snap into that mode, and it might even be what's the word I'm looking for? Speaking of stages of grief,
catharsis.
Thank you. Just kind of an acceptance of where we're at, what it's going to be. And just as a comforting exercise, all right, the Raiders aren't going to do nothing. So let's see what maybe they could build towards, what building blocks we may have. That's where my fandom goes. And again, I really don't mean that to be a sad, sacky thing. And I hope it doesn't come across that way. And I'm not a defeatist, right? And I'm not a defeatist. And those of you that watch the show long enough, you know that I'm not the guy that's going to be we suck and we're going to always suck. No, I don't think that. But I do think that there's a point now with what we did today, and now it's back to back against teams we should have beat. It's man, we're going to get smoked against the freaking Chiefs twice. We're going to get smoked against, when we start playing the more elite teams in the NFL, Miami, we go to Miami,
Okay, so here's a couple things.
That's where I go with my heart goes, my head goes, and then Mosh, take us on that. And we'll not take us out of here, but give me your final thoughts.
Okay, so two things.
Okay.
Two things that are important. Number one, the guys that called the game, okay? Who were they that called the game that we watched today, the broadcast that we watched today?
Oh, the broadcast team?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, I don't even
What's
remember.
his face?
Oh, it was Kevin Harlan, and I don't remember the other guy.
The guy that played for San Diego.
Was that Adam Archuleta, maybe?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
Anyway, my point is this.
Harlan, I know for sure.
They are going to show dejected Raiders. They are going to show anything and everything that they can. Any broadcast is going to do that they can show something detrimental to the Raiders. They are not going to show anything that's positive, upbeat, or fired up, or say, there's Raider football for you. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So that's number one. So you can only read so much of what you're saying about body language into it. Because I guarantee you that the defense is going, okay, we shut them down in the second half. We played a damn good game. They did. They rallied. They stepped up. They needed to do what they needed to do in the second half. Yeah, they came out a little bit flat in the first half, but they could have been blowing out a whole lot worse. They made some adjustments. That's what I liked. I liked that the second half of ball was better. That says to me that the coaching staff made some adjustments, okay? So take that away from the deflation of what you said you saw. Oh, they were down. Yeah, okay, because that's what they're going to show, okay? The next thing is that football is always every single team, all 32 teams are in a rebuilding year. There's no doubt about it. Every single team is rebuilding. Every single team is rebuilding for next year. Because just like I told Vinny when we did that last show, nobody will ever be able to replicate what we are doing. We have these 40 people doing this production, and it's fantastic, and no one will ever be able to replicate it. We will never be able to replicate it. We'll never be able to have it this time when everybody's at this age, playing at this level to make this happen again. So the same goes with every single team. Yes, Kansas City's been lucky enough. Yes, Belichick, when he had Brady, was lucky enough to be rebuilding. Somebody would go out and he'd have somebody in the wings waiting to step up. Every single team is rebuilding. We're just like the other 31 teams. We're rebuilding again. We have to look to the future. If you don't look to the future, why are you watching the game? Why did we get beat the last 2 weeks in games that we should have won, but we're all going to be tuned in next week?
That's true.
Because,
we ain't going anywhere. That's for sure.
And we talked about it earlier. Not to bring up New Orleans, because why would you? But Jonathan Abrams is on the practice squad, in New Orleans. Okay, I know he didn't do great. I know he didn't do fantastic for us. We had put a lot of high hopes in him. But is he kicking ass on the practice squad? Who knows? Does he get the call next week where he's up into the big show and he does well? A friend of the show, our buddy from Bussin' with the Boys.
Will?
Will. How many times did Will play for different teams waiting to
Speaking of the Saints, you had a cup of coffee?
Speaking of the Saints, he had a cup of... How many times did Will play for the Raiders, for the Titans, for Atlanta, for New Orleans, waiting to get that shot? Every single team is constantly rebuilding, and that's why people go to the games. That's why they go to see them. Okay, we're not ready to put bags on our heads. Okay, Mojo... He put an emoji on there with a Raiders fan on the back. Love you, Moj. I know you're listening. But you know what I'm saying? We're always rebuilding. And that's all we can hope for. That's all we can hope for. We're not going to throw in the towel. We're not going to rent out the Coliseum to UNLV. That's all we can do, man.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be super, Pollyanna about it, but what else are you going to do?
Well, that's where I'm saying is that that's where I look for things to root for, because I don't want to just go into a week and just being like, oh my gosh, we suck. We're going to Miami, we're going to get our ass kicked, whatever. It's because I feel like if we go into that, and while that can be the expectation, okay, look, we don't have a good shot to win this football game. And I can understand the concept of that and respect that. So what do I then do? Because I don't want to just go oh, well, we're going to get arrested. Because I'm watching no matter what. And that's what you were saying is that I ain't going anywhere. No. I've watched every snap that this football team has taken preseason or otherwise for, I don't know.
Probably longer than you can remember. Because you didn't have any choice when you were a kid.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying?
Sit down and shut up. Go get me a beer. Right. And then
Yeah. If the Raiders were, what did I just do? I don't know. Oh, well, what did I do there? Whoop. God dang it. There we go. As the Raiders were a thing, as if they were on television, and or I had the ability to access them on television as I got older, I watched every single aspect. So that is never going to change. That's never going to go away. At the same time, I think that by going into games thinking well, we got a shot to do this or do that. Nah, that's where I'm going to back off on that stuff because it does ultimately end up being a letdown. But different players
absolutely
won't let me down. Max Crosby isn't going to let me down.
No, sir.
Devontae Adams isn't going to let me down. Josh Jacobs is not going to let me down.
Not after today.
Not after today. So I could go into these games going here's the things I'm going to look for to root for.
Right.
And then if the game doesn't have the same outcome, ultimately wins and losses, well, then it's not that as deflating as going into it, again, with this high level of expectation.
Look,
because we have playoffs on the line or these lofty aspirations of doing something bigger. And I hope that's not a defeatist perspective because I really don't intend it to be.
No, not if you look at it like it's a rebuilding year.
Oh, fair enough.
Because the kid, what he learned today can't be taught. It wasn't taught at Purdue. It wasn't, it wasn't taught. It wasn't taught the tale of two cities when he fumbles the ball 3 times. We recovered one of them, 2 turnovers in the first half, and then he comes out and he has what could have possibly been a game-tying drive to send us into OT. What a hell of a first game this guy had. That stuff can't be taught. And he's probably smart. You don't
have a mustache like that and not be smart.
You don't have a drawn-on mustache like that and not be there. I liked his haircut too. But anyway, point is, there's so much to be taken away from this game that if the right people in the right places take away from it and build on it and learn from it. Was it a shit show? Of course. Should we have been in a position to have to fight to take it to overtime, no, we should have spanked them. But things didn't work out like that. 40-yard Jimmy was gone, And this guy and the kid proved he can throw a whole lot farther than that. He was throwing some dimes at 50 yards. Granted, they were to the other team, but that's not the point. The point is he showed some stuff, man. He showed some stuff.
And so the good stuff in there in the chat room, he says he didn't have a good game. Stop it. Well, listen, we're not trying to tell you he had a good game.
No, he didn't.
What we are trying to tell you is that we're looking for, this is the context of this particular conversation we're having. I don't know if you're just tuning in, is that what do you look for? What do you root for going forward? And were there some things in Aiden O'Connell's gameplay today that gave you something to root for? That's the whole point. Did he do everything perfect today? Hell no, he didn't. Did he hang onto the ball too long at times? Absolutely. Did he force the ball downfield into triple coverage when he shouldn't have? Absolutely. Did he do some rookie-ass shit? Absolutely. But did he also do some amazing things? Absolutely.
Yep.
When the thing wasn't schemed for him to drive the ball down, 10, 15 yards downfield to these slot receivers that we have that should be freaking kicking ass in this offense, did he get Josh Jacobs involved, and did he get him going in the game? And did Josh Jacobs have a freaking practically elite day catching the football? Yes. So that's the point. Good stuff. And there were things to root for, and that's what all
if you've
heard the first 40 minutes of this show, it's like there is a lot of shit to be angry, sad, sacky, negative about. But we're just at this point of the conversation, as we're ending the show, I'm just trying to find something to root for.
Right.
And as Mosh is saying, there were some things defensively that we could find to root for, and then offensively, and especially the way that the kid played, to root for, doesn't diminish and or make it sound like, oh, this other stuff didn't happen. No, we were aware. We saw it.
100% aware.
It's like, there might only been 20% good in this game, but that's what we're trying to talk about going forward into the next week and as this season goes through. Because if we just sit around and just say, well, the whole team sucks, the organization sucks, the head coach sucks,
then why do we do this?
Then why would the shit would we be here? Absolutely. Yeah. That's all it is. All right, Uncle Mosh, final thoughts before we get on out of here.
Man, I'm just fired up for another season of football. We'll be back. When are we back? 2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks. Yeah. Because we won't do them primetime games. Yeah, so for those of you that are just checking in, appreciate you first and foremost.
Yeah, thank you.
So any of the early games, any of the afternoon games, Mosh and I are going to jump in and give you our thoughts post-game. Hopefully we'll have something a little more positive to talk about. So far it's been the Bills, and this one has been our two games. But yeah, keep checking in with us post game for any of the early games, any of the primetime games. We won't do this. We're on Central Time, and so
it's too late.
It's too late. You need a nap.
Yeah. Well, I'm retired. I get naps. You don't. You got to work for a living.
That's true. I got to get up and go to work tomorrow. but yeah. So for those of you, just definitely check us out on these on the non-primetime games.
Sure.
And so we'll be back. So we won't be here for the Packers game next week, but we will be back for the week after that. And so we appreciate you all very much for checking in tonight. Chat room, can't read it, can't keep up with it through the night, but we always go back and read it. So appreciate all of your comments and keep them coming. Good, bad, otherwise, keep those comments coming. We appreciate you guys. And if you do us a favor, hit a like, hit a subscribe, hit I always want to say a retweet. Hit a retweet, and because all that stuff helps the show. But more importantly, by helping the show, you help our nonprofit organization, which is the One Nation Foundation, and we give strictly to Raiders-related charities like the Bolitnikoff Foundation, who we are going to see this November and present a check on your behalf for $15,000. Man, we appreciate you guys so very, very much for doing that. So again, any of the monetary donations go straight to the foundation. But when you retweet us and all those good things and subscribe and all that, it generates advertising opportunities with a lot of good folks like Manscaped, who you've just brought on this last week. And the Manscaped folks are again, great contributors to the One Nation Foundation. And so we appreciate them and appreciate you very, very much. Okay, Uncle Mosh.
Man.
Get us out of here in a good way.
It's just fun to be back behind the microphone.
It's fun to have you.
It's fun to hear from our friends. I'm trying to look on my phone and see who's in there, and I can't do it. I don't have Swaggy here to hand my phone and go make this work. But no kidding. Man, it's always good to be with you. We got to eat a nice dish. We had for those of you that want to know, Murf made some pasta, used my mom's recipe on some meatballs, and it was a good day. I hope all of you got to be with your loved ones and watch our beloved Raiders. Man, just remember, this show is a lighter side journey into the dark side, and we are as far dark in the dark side as you can get right about now. So, adios, my lingerers. Remember, what started in Oakland, is not. What's happening in Vegas started in Oakland, or something like that. I don't know. I don't have my book with me, so good to see you. Can't wait to see you again. Hopefully, it's on a brighter note. We might. Hey, who knows? We could pull off an upset.
Oh, let's go.
Wouldn't that be great?
Let's go.
Wouldn't that be great? Can't wait to see you next time. Thanks for having me, Murph. Thanks for feeding me, and we'll see y'all later. Mojo, I see you in there.
Good night, YouTube.
Good night, YouTubes.
See you Wednesday.
Let me see if I can read some of these.
Okay.
Rich Vital, The Big Easy, Ebony Graves, Pirate 1975, Robert Hockenberry, Grumpy Raider Fan, Golden Arms, Jimmy Tidwins. Let's see, where we at? Vegas Raider Pete. Fabricator Gil,
Hey,
the good
Gil.
stuff. Somebody said Uncle Mosh looks like Rob Ryan. Must be a new listener.
Uncle Mosh is Rob Ryan.
Mike Downs, Storm, Michelle. Good night, everybody.